This is the introduction and part 1 of chapter 19 on media law. So this chapter and the next are going to basically be kind of introductions to a lot of the topics that you're going to look into in a lot more depth when you take media law and ethics. And most of you, if you are communications majors, communication PR majors, new media, media studies and communications, any of those other than perhaps visual digital arts majors will need to take media law and ethics because it is really important, not just for people who practice journalism, but pretty much anyone who's a practitioner in the media, to understand what laws protect you, where your legal standing is in terms of things like copyright, what laws can be used against you, and to just make sure that you are creating media that is as ethically sound as possible as well, and that as practitioners of people who are creating art, creating communication that's going out into the world, that we use this like as a force for good. You know, with great power comes great responsibility and all that. So this particular chapter is going to be a brief introduction to kind of like the big hitters in these topics and major points that, you know, are better to kind of start getting exposed to and start getting under your belt kind of as early as possible, so that you feel as protected and as confident as you can be when you kind of go out there and are making your own stuff. And of course, you can't really have a discussion of law without also a discussion of ethics. So we're going to go over here kind of what the statutes are that are on the books. And then, you know, this is kind of the end result of the why those statutes exist, and that's what's linked into the ethics, the why we do what we do, why are certain things legal and other things not legal. A lot of it comes down to the ethical implications. So there's basically 6 major points that we're going to go into. We'll start off with discussing the First Amendment. Most things kind of boil down to the First Amendment in one way or another, and what actually that is. Then we're going to talk about libel, which is the biggest area that people in the media, when they do get sued for libel or defamation more than anything else. And while there are protections, it's good to know how to protect yourself and how to know that you are kind of practicing in good faith and knowing that you should be protected no matter what. Now, the biggest thing with any libel lawsuit is the threat of lawsuit is usually enough to scare off people, which is kind of what people hope for. But if you are, you know, reporting on something or you've created something and you understand that it's important and that it's something that needs to be said, and you know that it's true and right, then you'll want to make sure that you stand up and say, no, this isn't libel, and, you protect yourself. The next area that people run afoul of is privacy. So that's the section after libel. Libel is kind of the biggest section in this chapter. And then we'll want to talk about the fact that, and this kind of goes into ethics, protecting your sources and protecting confidentiality is one of the biggest things and kind of one of the most important things that you can do. Then we'll touch on your access to the courts and to the legal system in terms of being able to view the courts and legal system. And then we're just going to end with copyright. And we're going to do a really brief overview of copyright because it's very in-depth. And again, this is something that has a whole chapter when you study media law. And it is also changing. But you want to make sure you at least understand the basics of copyright, although I have kind of touched on it with things like images before. So just, while you're making stuff, you know that you're doing so in a way that you can then share it as you go forward. So for this video, I'm just gonna talk about the First Amendment, and then we'll get into the other stuff in the next few videos.